Hello and welcome to Tech Raven. I'm Nigel and today I'm doing a little comparison between the Hasselblad X2D medium format camera and one of my own cameras, a Canon R6 MKII full frame mirrorless camera. Now I've got a couple of these. I've got this one here and I'm being filmed on another right now. So I've got two R6 MKIIs with quite a few Canon RF series lenses. So recently Hasselblad kindly sent me an X2D with an XCD series 55mm lens to review and evaluate. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to see that. I'll also put a link in the description below to the review I did of the Hasselblad X1D a few years ago. So while I had that camera and while I was testing it, I went and did a shoot in a local studio with a friend of mine, and I figured while I was there, I'd take some shots on both the Hasselblad and my Canon R6 MKII just to do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison. Now, I've got to admit, this is a bit of an unfair comparison because if I look at my computer screen here, I'm going to tell you that the Hasselblad X2D with the 55mm lens comes in at £10,930 including VAT. Now this is UK prices and this is about the cheapest I could find it legitimately in the UK, and that was via Wex Photographic. So £10,930 for the Hasselblad combo, whereas the Canon R6 MKII with this 100mm f2.8 RF series macro lens comes in at £4,150 from the same shop, including VAT. So the Hasselblad combo comes in at £6,780 more expensive than the Canon. So there's quite a gulf in price. Now also, there's quite a gulf in sensor size because the Canon, as we all know, is a full frame 24 megapixel sensor, whereas the Hasselblad X2D is a medium format 100 megapixel sensor that is 44 by 33 millimeters in size, as opposed to the 36 by 24 that you have in the Canon. And also the Canon's resolution is 6000 by 4000 pixels, whereas the Hasselblad is 11656 by 8742 pixels. So again, there's a big gulf in price. There's also a big gulf in sensor size and a big gulf in resolution. But is there a big gulf in image quality? So what I'm going to do in a second, I'm going to jump on the computer and I'm going to basically show you these two images side by side, one shot on the Hasselblad and one shot on the Canon, so we can do a little bit of pixel peeping, and then I'm going to come back here and wrap up the video because I've got some thoughts and feelings on this subject. Okay, so let me just jump into it and quickly show you these, and then I'll come back here to wrap up and give you my final thoughts. Okay, so I'm here in Capture One and I've got both the images up on the screen, one taken on my own personal Canon R6 MKII with a Canon RF series 100mm f2.8 macro lens, the other shot taken on the Hasselblad X2D with a Hasselblad XCD 55mm f2.5 lens. Now, I will say straight off the bat that YouTube has obviously done a bit of a compression job on this video, so depending on what device you're viewing the video on, be it an iPad or a large TV, you're going to have to take into account compression. And also down at the bottom of these two images, there is a little bit of metadata that would give away which is which. So I've covered it up with a little stripe in DaVinci Resolve. And also over here on the left, I've got the library folder selected, but I will click on the metadata one shortly to show you which is which. So I will just say straight away that both these were taken during the same photo session at the same time, literally within about 15 minutes of each other. Admittedly, the model is wearing a different outfit on one of them, but they were taken about 15 minutes apart under the same lighting conditions, which was a key light, a fill light, a backlight, and a background light. The only difference is one was taken on my Canon, the other on the Hasselblad. At this angle, can you tell which is which? Just looking at the detail around the face and the skin and the background tones, the colour of the skin, etc. Which do you prefer? Which one do you think is a Hasselblad and which one do you think is the Canon? Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on both of these. Okay, so zoomed in even more. If you have a look at the detail around the eye, the actual eyelashes and the eyebrow on both of the images, look at the detail in the skin on the cheek here on both of them and around the nose and the lips. Again, which one do you prefer? Which one do you feel has the most detail, the better dynamic range, the better colours, etc., etc.? For me, both of them are looking really nice at this stage. So if I zoom in even more, okay, so here I can see that there are little red veins in the whites of the eye on both of these. I'm looking at the eye here on this side and this side because this is where I focused when I was taking the shots, but I can clearly see red veins in the whites of the eyes on both of these images, and there's good detail in the eyelashes and eyebrows on both. If I zoom in even more to the nose area here and look at the actual nose, what I want you to look at here is just this peachy hair around the nostril on both of these images. Again, they both resolve quite nicely. Again, you can see good detail around the nose in both of these. If I come back to the eye and have a look here, zoom in a little bit more to get them to match up. Again, I've got the little red blood vessels in the whites of the eye that I can see on both of them. And there's good detail in the eyelashes and eyebrows and around the skin on the inner part of the eye on both of these. Now, it could be argued that the shot on the right looks sharper, but it could also be argued that it's kind of artificially sharp, perhaps, whereas the one on the left, the eyebrow looks a little bit smoother and creamier, shall we say. So I'm just going to remove this little stripe from the bottom of these images to reveal which is which. Okay, so as you can see, it's the Canon on the right and the Hasselblad on the left. And if I click on the metadata tab over here, you can see that this is a Canon XCD 55mm lens on the X2D 100C. And on the right, we've got the Canon 100mm macro lens on the EOS R6 Mark II. I'm going to zoom into a crazy amount here, absolutely silly amount. If you look at how far in I'm zoomed here, I'm up to literally, well, on the Hasselblad 700% and on the Canon 1100%, which is crazy. Now, just looking at this round specular highlight here off one of the lights, you can see there is a little bit of stepping around the edge of it, whereas on the Hasselblad, it is smoother. So that's basically down to the resolution. You've got to remember here, the Hasselblad is 100 megapixels and, of course, a larger sensor, whereas the Canon on the right is only 24 megapixels, and, of course, it's a smaller full-frame sensor. Now, I did do a comparison between the Canon R6 and the Canon R5, which is a difference between 24 megapixels and 50 megapixels on those two full-frame cameras, and the difference was definitely there. So if this Canon on the right was shot on the R5, that detail would be a lot closer. So there we go. There is definitely a little bit of a difference here. Now that I've pointed out which is which, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So from this kind of range, again, the Hasselblad on the left, the Canon on the right, and those of you with a keen eye would have noticed that the actual aspect ratio is different on the left as well, because the Hasselblad medium format has got a different aspect ratio to the Canon on the right. Now, from this angle, zoomed out all the way, what I want you to look at here is just purely the color, because for me, the Canon on the right is more accurate because I remember the color of this pink Colorama background when I was there, and this one on the Hasselblad on the left, it seems to be pushing it a little bit too close towards a darker pink, sort of getting a little bit sort of more purpley in there, whereas the Canon one has rendered those colors more accurately. Now, there could be a few factors in that, the lens difference and the angle, the fact that I would have been a bit closer to the model when shooting with the Hasselblad and I was further away with the Canon, so there might have been a little bit of compression thing there that's affecting that, but I'm kind of speculating with that one. For me, the Canon on the right is a little bit more accurate with the colors. Now, everybody says that Hasselblad does have the best color science in the world, and if you'd have asked me a couple of years ago, I would have definitely said yes. But with the X2D, the color science has changed ever so slightly over the X1D with the 50 megapixel sensor. So this one seems to be a little bit different. I wouldn't say it's worse, but it has changed slightly, and I think Canon, certainly with the R6 Mark II and the latest version of the R5, the actual color science, I think now with Canon they've overtaken Hasselblad by a hair, and I do mean by a hair. But for me now, the Canon is rendering a more neutral looking image, a more natural looking image with regard to skin tones. The model here, a friend of mine, Naomi, this is exactly how her skin looked on the day. The Hasselblad, it is introducing a hint of kind of warmness into it. And like I said, this background is a little bit darker with a hint of a deeper kind of purple starting to creep into that. Again, it's tiny because in post-production, you can actually change these things and fix them anyway. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that anyhow, because at the end of the day, the color science on both the Canon and the Hasselblad is so good, we're only talking minor tweaks to get it exactly where you want it in post-production anyhow. Okay, so there it is. Now, as you can see, there is a difference in image quality, but given the gulf in price and sensor size and resolution and so on and so forth, the difference isn't quite so big. It's actually quite small in the grand scheme of things. And as I mentioned in the video, I was using the R6 MKII, which is only a 24 megapixel. If I'd have been using the R5 with 50 megapixel, that detail and the creamy tones and the general look of the image would have got even closer to the Hasselblad, so that gulf would have been even smaller. Which begs the question, do we actually need medium format cameras? Now, I would say to that, in 99% of the cases, no, because certainly in my case, I don't even need an R5 50 megapixel. I didn't want to spend an extra £1,700 on an R5 body over the R6 MKII because I don't need 50 megapixels. 24 is absolutely fine, and it has been for some considerable time. Now, the reason I don't need any more than this is because none of my work ends up being printed bigger than editorial work for magazines. Best case scenario, a cover shot, which is about A4. So they're not being blown up that big, or they're going to be for internet distribution. But even then, with a 24 megapixel full frame camera like this, I can still print out like 3 by 2 foot, which is like quite large. And as long as you're standing viewing it at what I call a sensible gallery distance, without walking up to it with a magnifying loupe and analyzing the pixels, it looks absolutely incredible. It's fine. And that's going to be the case for most people. So most people are not going to need a medium format camera, unless, of course, you're doing high-end commercial photography on a regular basis. Now, when I'm talking high-end, I'm talking about an advert for Nike training shoes that's going to be put up on the side of a bus or on a billboard or on the side of a building in London, New York, Paris, wherever, and it's going to be blown up to massive proportions. But even then, let me just show you something here. What I've actually got here is a camera sensor sizes chart that I put together just to give you an idea as to the difference in sensor sizes. Starting from the bottom, in the red box, we've got the Micro Four Thirds, and then we've got APS-C, full frame, the Hasselblad, and on top of that, the Phase 1. Now, the reason I wanted to mention this is because a lot of people think Hasselblad is the be-all and end-all, but it's not. The Phase 1 XT has got a bigger sensor with more megapixels. So as you can see by this diagram, the Phase 1 is 54 by 40.5, while the Hasselblad X2D is 44 by 33. And on top of that, the Hasselblad sensor is 100 megapixels, while the Phase 1 is 151 megapixels. And because the Phase 1 has a bigger sensor, there's a lot more resolution too. Compare the Hasselblad's 11,656 by 8,742 to the Phase 1 XT, which is 14,204 by 10,652. You can see there that there is quite a gulf and difference between the Hasselblad and the Phase 1. So when I'm talking medium format, I'm talking about the Hasselblad X2D or the H6 or the Phase 1, which have got even larger sensors with more megapixels to count. So again, unless you're doing high-end commercial shoots for Nike, Adidas, whoever it may be, that's going to be put on billboards on the streets, you really don't need to invest in that kind of kit. It is just not necessary. And even if you do high-end commercial shoots, if you only do 2 or 3 a year, even then you might not have to invest all that money, because the Phase 1 stuff is going to cost double the Hasselblad anyway. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to do quite a few jobs to recoup that. So let's get on to the old thing of renting, because if I just look on my computer at the details I've got here, I looked at a couple of websites in the UK, and you can rent Hasselblad and Phase 1 cameras all over the world. And to give you an idea, X2D body is about £195 per day, and the lens is going to be about £28. The lenses range from about £20 to £38 each, depending on which lens you get. So we're looking at about £230 for a Hasselblad X2D with a lens per day. Now, even if you need to rent it for 2 or 3 days, you're looking at sort of £500 or £700 for a 2 or 3 day rental if you need it that long. Now, that's not going to matter, because if you've got a big client, whoever that may be, with big money, then you could potentially be charging 8, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds, depending on what the shoot is anyway. So you're just building that into the budget and the client's paying for it anyway. So it really doesn't make any difference. If you need to go even further in image quality, a phase 1, 151 megapixel back, camera and lens is going to come in at about £475. It's about £450 for the back and the camera and about £35 for a lens. So you're looking at about $470-ish to rent the phase 1 for a day. Again, if you're doing commercial stuff on that level and you're charging those kind of prices, you could be doing, you know, a catalog shoot for Kawasaki where they need several motorbike shots, and that could run into tens of thousands of pounds. So if you basically need to hire this stuff for 4 or 5 days, spending another sort of £700, £800, £1,000 for that amount of quality for those days isn't going to matter, because you're billing the client anyway, so it's not going to make any difference to your pocket. So when it comes to pixels and megapixels, leave that to the gadget men and the geeks to obsess over megapixels and pixel peeping and pixel counting and so on and so forth, and what next year's greatest camera is, because it's all marketing rubbish anyway. For example, I've got an iPhone 12 here. This has got a 12 megapixel camera in the back, well, a 12 megapixel chip, 2 of them in fact for the 2 lenses, but the 12 megapixels are wasted because you've got this contact lens / guppy's eye of a lens here, which is just, it couldn't resolve anything if its life depended on it. So having that 12 megapixel chip in here is an absolute waste of time when you look at the lens, because that's not really a lens at all. And I've always said, when it comes to photography equipment, instead of obsessing over resolution, pixels, megapixels, whatever next year's great camera is going to be, I'm going to hold out until the Mark II comes out or the Mark III, I'm not going to buy it yet. It's nonsense, because it's got nothing to do with the camera. It's all in the glass and the lens, and it's all about your knowledge of composition, of lighting, your understanding of the rule of thirds, leading lines, textures, angles, which lens choice to have, which shutter speed and aperture combination. All those things are way more important than the camera itself. The camera is nothing more than a box that holds the sensor, or back in the day it would hold the film, and that's it. Back in the day I used to shoot on a whole combination of cameras. I had a studio in London with another photographer, and we used to shoot on 10.8 and 5.4 Sinar film cameras. We had a Hasselblad 500cm with a load of lenses. I actually loved the Mamiya Z6-7 Pro II that I had, with a load of lenses for that too. We had Canon F1 cameras with lots of Canon FD lenses, and I also had a Nikon F3, FA, FM2 and FE2 with lots of Nikkor glass, and they were all film cameras, and they all stayed in manual mode. But again, the camera body, it was literally just a box to hold the film with a shutter curtain, and that was it, nothing more. Now back in, when was it? 86, I think it was either Tamron or Tokina, one of those lens manufacturers that made 35mm film camera lenses, actually had an advert, and just to prove that it's all about the lens, they actually fixed the lens to the front of a shoebox somehow. I'm not too sure how they do it. They obviously did it in a kind of a clever way, but they mounted the lens to the front of a shoebox, and inside the shoebox they obviously had some sort of film holder to hold the film, and they scientifically measured the difference from the actual flange, where the film was going to be, to the rear element of the lens, to get all that right. And then in the studio they just took the lens cap off went the flashes, lens cap back on, and they did a picture just to prove that it was all about the lens. And I totally agree and subscribe to that. It's all in the glass, nothing else is important. Now, especially if you're going to hold out for next year's best camera, what a waste of time that would be, because imagine if all those iconic photographers from back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, imagine if they'd all said, oh, I'm going to wait until the next camera comes out. We would have missed out on so many great shots. And if you look at the cameras that people like Ansel Adams used to use, I think it was a Hasselblad 500C, that was one of his preferred cameras. The lenses that he was using back then were nowhere near as good as the optics that we've got today. We've got better coatings, better science behind it. The actual technology in the lenses is way better than anything that Ansel Adams would have used. And if you look at shots from the likes of Bob Carlos Clark, Donovan, Beverly Goodway, or any of the Bang Bang Club, those war journalists and photographers, the images they got were striking, and they were all running around with things like, Nikon Fs, all in manual mode, aperture priority at the best. And the cameras that Bob Carlos Clout was using, he was using a lot of 35mm stuff. He was also using a Fuji 6.7 or 6.8 medium format camera. But again, the optics were nothing compared to what we have today. Yet you just look at some of the iconic and amazing photographs that were taken in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, and even 40s. And they are absolutely phenomenal, because photography should be about evoking some kind of emotion. Your picture should tell a story. There should be a concept, and it should raise a question, evoke an emotion again. Or, you know, the viewer is potentially asking the question, oh, what happened just before this? What happened after that? It should get you thinking. It's got nothing to do with resolution or pixel counts. So that's my little rant there on it. So getting back to the, do we need medium format cameras, be it a Hasselblad or, you know, even more, going up the ladder, the phase one? In my opinion, no, not unless you're doing high-end commercial work on a regular basis. And when I say regular, I'm talking kind of monthly to justify that kind of outlay. If you're only doing 2 or 3 jobs a year commercially, rent. And then for the rest of the time, cameras like this, it really doesn't make that much difference. You know, for magazine editorials, for the internet. I mean, if you look at Rosella Vanon, I'll put a link in the description below to her website. To me, she's one of the best beauty photographers in the world. And she shoots on, I think it's a Canon EOS 5D Mark III. It's like, again, a 22, 23 megapixel thing with her preferred lens, a 100mm macro Canon portrait lens, I think it is, 105mm, something like that. You look at her images. She's been on the cover of Vogue, Elle, all those magazines, and they are absolutely stunning. She's not concerned with megapixel counts. It's a tool. Any camera is basically a tool. So depending on what the job is, you have to get the camera that's going to do what the client wants. So in all honesty, even an APS-C camera will be fine for editorial stuff. Don't obsess with it. Go for full frame if you can. But again, just drop the whole, you know, geeky stuff and just buy a camera. It doesn't matter what it is, and get good quality glass and just get on with being a creative person. Create and take photographs that evoke emotion. And instead of spending time with the geek factor and all the bells and whistles, spend more time studying lighting and studying the art, and learn how to take really good photographs that evoke emotion and raise questions. Okay, there it is. You've been watching Tech Raven. I'm Nigel. Until the next one, bye for now.